There is a murmur beneath the waves, faint and yet insistent. It is the sound of a name, one you cannot quite hear, but its presence is unmistakable. Yam, the sea god, whispers it in the depths. Not the name you know, nor the one spoken in the stories of mortals, but something older, darker, entwined with the salt of the earth and the eternal rhythms of the tides. You stand at the shore watching the sea stretch endlessly before you, but something is different tonight. The wind carries with it the faintest of murmurs, a song only the brave oar, the foolish will listen to. The waves you see not just water, but a presence, a forgotten deity that calls to you from beneath. His voice is buried, though once it was a roar that shook the heavens, a presence that could summon storms and calm them as icily as the rolling of a tide. You are drawn to the waters, even though the sands beneath your feet have grown cold, even though the air around you hums with a sense of ancient warning. The name Yam rises, muffled by the winds, but unmistakable in its call. A name erased from the annals of time, wiped clean from the scrolls of the gods. What happened to him, you wonder? Why has his name been forgotten? What power did he wield, and what did he lose when the sky turned against him? The answer lies deeper beneath the surface of both sea and memory. The rituals, those one secret rites that bound the mortals to him, have been obscured by time. Yet, they linger in fragments, in half-remembered prayers whispered by sailors who once dared to call upon him. His worship, lost to the mortal world, now sits in the shadows, forgotten by most, but not by all. The ancient sacrifices, made in secret by those who sought his favor, were offered not in the hope of riches or bounty, but in the desperate desire to appease something far greater than themselves. What was the price of their devotion? What pact did they make with the sea god? And what was the cost when he turned from them? You must know, as you gaze into the dark waters, you see them symbols of old, half erased from memory but still flickering in the corners of your mind. Cursed symbols, forbidden symbols, ones once etched in stone and blood. These signs, the forgotten sigils of Yam's worship, have been lost to time, but they stir in you an unease. The ritual that once called him, that once made the very tides tremble under his dominion, has faded like a dream upon waking. You feel the ocean's pull, not in its force, but in its way, to its ancient and unfathomable knowledge. The mysteries buried within it are not all lost. They still sleep in the deep, waiting for someone brave, or perhaps foolish enough to seek them. The power that Yam held is not truly gone. It is merely faded, become a shadow in the crests and troughs of the waves. A whisper calls your name soft, coaxing, the voice of the deep sea, calling you toward something that was once and is no more. And yet that too is a lie. For the truth lies within the silence of the forgotten. It is the silence of a god erased. It's the silence of the tides left undisturbed. The silence of something that once had power over all things, now nothing but an echo in the wind. In the forgotten texts, you find an altar, a remnant of the worship that once was. The sea god's final followers had disappeared, their sacrifices lost, and their names forgotten. But here, hidden among the stones, are traces of a ritual long abandoned, a ritual to call Yam's name back from the abyss, to bring him into the world once more. But why? Why would anyone dare attempt to summon him after his fall? The answer, you realize, lies in the nature of the ocean itself. The sea is not a place for gods to grow idle. It is a place of constant change, a place where everything shifts, evolves, and ultimately is swallowed. Yam's story is one of rise and fall, of dominance over the waters, only to be dethroned by the sky above. Yet in his defeat, something was left behind, a curse, a memory, a fading ripple on the surface of time. But it is more than a curse, it is a question. What truly happened to Yam? Was it the wrath of the sky that brought his reign to an end? Or was there something deeper, a hidden force that led to his destruction? One far more insidious than the clash of sea and sky. You're left with this unanswered question, and yet, in the deepest part of the ocean, in the places where the light does not reach, Yam's name still stirs. Forgotten, yes, but not truly gone. Now, let's get started with today's story. There is a place, deep within the ocean, where the tide does not merely rise and fall, it swallows whole memories. You can almost feel it now, as you listen to the rhythmic pull of the waves, their soft whispers barely reaching your ears. They beckon you forward, drawing you into the hidden currents, those lost places that were once the heart of a forgotten world. You dive deeper into the history of Yam, and the stories twist around you like the very waters you seek to understand. His worship, once widespread along coastal lands, was bound to a secret ritual. Sailors, desperate for favor in the face of great storms or deadly voyages, whispered his name in the darkest corners of their ships. They offered sacrifices, not in the open but in hidden coves, under the cover of night, where the stars could not see. The ritual was not one of beauty. It was a pact, a bargain made with a god whose anger was as potent as his blessings. You find fragments of these offerings, now long decayed, hidden in ancient texts, their words haunting in their simplicity. The ritual spoke of appeasing Yam through the sacrifice of something precious, something irreplaceable. A rare gemstone, a life bound to the sea, the very essence of a sailor's heart. These were the gifts. The prayers, too, were not full of praise, but of desperate need. There was no honoring of Yam as a god of abundance, no words of joy, only a plea for mercy. In these texts, you discover a Marcan, unusual, forbidden symbol that once adorned the altars of Yam's followers. It is not a symbol that speaks of harmony, but of the ocean's all-consuming power. A circle, half-formed, with waves curling around it, broken and incomplete. It is a curse, this mark, for it signifies the breaking of a cycle, the rupture of an ancient agreement. It was said that those who performed the ritual of sacrifice would not merely receive blessings from the sea, but a deeper bond, one that tied the heart of the devotee to the very essence of the ocean. And when the bond was made, the sacrifice was eternal. But something went wrong. As you delve further, you uncover a terrifying truth. These sacrifices were not entirely voluntary. The sea god, as powerful as he was, did not always answer with grace. The ritual designed to summon his favor often instead drew him into a frenzy, a fury that was uncontrollable and terrifying. It was not a matter of divine love. It was the nature of the sea itself, force of chaos and destruction. The more the worshippers called upon Yam, the more his fury grew, until it could no longer be contained. This ritual, once a secret among sailors, began to spread, and the sea god's influence grew beyond the shores of the coastal lands. Even inland peoples, far from the water's edge, began to call upon Yam. They sought his blessings in times of famine, drought, and war, believing his power over the seas could control all things. But it was not his favor they received, it was his wrath. The rituals had grown twisted, corrupted by the greed of mortals and the uncontrollable nature of the ocean god himself. In your mind, the mystery deepens. Was this the reason for Yam's eventual defeat? Did his inability to control the chaos he created lead to his downfall? It is said that the sky god, Baal, his name forbidden even to speak aloud, sought to end the growing power of the sea god. This god of the heavens, with his storms and thunder, saw the threat Yam posed and could not allow him to rise to full power again. A war, though never fully recorded, raged between the two, with each god vying for control. And yet, despite the sky's power, it was not the skies alone that destroyed Yam. Instead, it was a betrayal, a rift that grew deeper with each passing day. The sea god, in his madness, began to turn upon his own worshippers. His fury was no longer aimed solely at the sky god, but at those who had once pledged their lives to him. The ritual, once sacred, became the very means of his destruction. In the end, it was not the sky's wrath that destroyed Yam, it was the god's own unraveling, brought on by his inability to control the forces he had set in motion. As you search through forgotten ruins and crumbling altars, you find remnants of those lost worshippers. Their final prayers are scattered in pieces, fragments of an older world that still seeks to make itself known to you. They speak of an awakening, a return to the ritual, a desperate attempt to call Yam back, but they also speak of something far darker. They tell of the curse that lingered long after Yam's fall, the curse that bound the ocean god's power to the tides, that twisted and consumed the very hearts of those who dared to worship him. The question remains, did Yam ever truly fall? Or did he simply fade, abandoned by the very worshippers who once revered him? Was his disappearance part of the sky god's victory, or was it a consequence of the worshippers' own greed? Perhaps the true nature of Yam's fall will never be known, for the answers lie not in the stories of the gods, but in the forgotten rituals that continue to haunt the waters hidden beneath the waves. And so, the mystery lingers unanswered, even as the ocean continues its eternal ebb and flow. The tides hide more than just the secrets of the past. They conceal a truth that might be too dangerous to know. Perhaps it is better that you never find the answer, for in the deepest parts of the ocean, the name of Yam still echoes, a warning to those who would seek what is lost. The ocean swallows your thoughts, and the whispers grow faint, but they remain always there, waiting for someone, perhaps you, to listen. The ocean never forgets. It whispers of a time long past when the sea god Yam and the sky god Baal were not enemies, but allies. The truce between the two, forged in the early days of creation, bound the heavens and the earth in a fragile dance. The gods in their infinite power were not to interfere with one another's domains. The sky would rule the air, the winds, the rain. The sea would rule the waters, the depths, and the tides. There was balance, then a harmony, where each god knew their place, and the world spun in its ancient rhythm. But there was always the temptation, for gods, like men, are creatures of pride. The truce, delicate as it was, would not last forever. You can almost feel it, the tension that grew over time, like the pressure in the ocean before a storm. The whispers say that it was Yam who first began to grow restless. His dominion over the sea was unchallenged, but the ocean is never satisfied. Always it seeks more power, more control, more freedom to churn and shape the world as it wills. And so, the sea god began to stir. Unsettling the delicate balance that had kept the two gods in check, he called out to the sky, to Baal, demanding more. He demanded that the wind be at his command, that the storms be his to direct, that the stars themselves should bow to his will. But Baal, the god of the heavens, would not yield. He refused to relinquish control of the skies, and thus, the truce was shattered. It was a rupture that cannot be fully understood, for the divine conflict was hidden in layers of myth and secrecy. But what you can gather, as you search through these old fragments, is that the war between Yam and Baal was not merely a battle of force, it was a war of wills. And the true cost of that war was the delicate balance of the world itself. But in that moment, when the truce was torn asunder, something shifted. For Yam did not go to war alone. His followers, the worshippers who had once called upon him in secret, saw in this divine rift an opportunity to call upon their god more directly. No longer would they perform their quiet rituals by the shore. Now they would seek to draw Yam back into the world with greater fervor. With each incantation, with each prayer, they sought to reach deeper into the ocean, to pull him from the depths of the sea and into their world. And so, they made a terrible mistake. The first of these rituals, this forbidden act of summoning, was seen in the ruins you now stand in. The altar, half drowned and crumbling under centuries of salt water, bears the marks of the final pact made with Yam. It was not a ritual of blessing, but one of binding. They sought to summon the sea god not to return his favor, but to chain him to the world, to make his power forever their own. The sea god's wrath was unleashed upon them in a way no one could have predicted. The markings on the altar are clear now, symbols of wind and wave, of sky and sea entwined in a bond that no mortal should have dared make. At the center, a single broken symbol, half-formed, appears. The symbol speaks of something much older than even Yam's reigns, something that hints at the true nature of the ocean itself. You are close now, closer than anyone has come in ages, to understanding the primal force that binds the gods. You recall a myth spoken in hushed voices in the temples long abandoned. It speaks of the eclipse of the waters, a celestial event where the moon, sun, and stars align in such a way that the sea and sky are temporarily united. It is said that in those moments of celestial convergence, the gods' powers are heightened, and they may act beyond the bounds of their normal dominions. Was this the final act of the truce, the very event that tipped the scales in favor of the sky god? Was this the moment Yam lost his dominion? Was it a celestial accident, or something darker, orchestrated by forces that sought to end the god's reign over earth and sky? The fragments of knowledge you gather begin to twist in your mind like the storm itself, unpredictable, vast, and maddening. What you do know is that in the aftermath of the rupture, the sky god's anger took the form of a celestial storm, one that ripped the sea god's essence from the depths and cast it into the heavens. Once a figure of eternal power, was swept into exile, vanishing from the mortal world and leaving only fragments of his former might behind. You find a lost text buried within the crumbling ruins, an old prayer, one that does not speak of Yam's destruction, but of his disappearance. In it, the worshippers ask a troubling question. If Yam is no longer of the sea, where has he gone? And what is it that now rules the waves? The answer, you realize, is not as simple as the sky god's victory. For when the truce was broken, something else was born, a new force that does not belong to either the sea or the sky. It is the unspoken force, the one that lies beyond the gods, a force that grew in the absence of Yam's rule. Perhaps then, the true conflict was not between the gods, but between the elements themselves. For the gods are merely expressions of the forces that govern the world, and when they fight, the world trembles. But even now, in the deepest parts of the ocean, in the hidden corners where no mortal dares to look, there is something stirring. It is not the sea god, not the sky god, but something else. Something that seeks to reclaim the power that was once Yam's. This, too, is a secret one that remains locked beneath the surface of the waves. Perhaps you have come too close. Perhaps you have uncovered more than you were meant to know. But the truth, it seems, is that the war between Yam and the sky god was only the beginning. The real struggle, the one that still echoes through the waves, is the one between what is seen and what is hidden. The air is thick with tension, as if the sky itself is holding its breath. You can feel it, the electric anticipation that crackles just beneath the surface of the world. As if something ancient is stirring, something forgotten is beginning to awaken once more. It is the storm that has been gathering for centuries, ever since the breaking of the sacred truce between Yam and Baal. The winds have begun to change, and you can hear them now, rising in the distance, growing louder with each passing moment. It is not the usual sound of a storm. It is something deeper, older, more primal. The sky howls, the sea rages, and the earth trembles beneath your feet. The storm is coming, and it carries with it the echoes of an old conflict, one that never truly ended. You find yourself standing on the edge of a cliff, looking out at the vast expanse of the ocean. The sky above is dark, swollen with clouds, while the water below churns and crashes against the rocks. There is something in the wind, a voice, perhaps a whisper from the deep. It is the voice of Yam, not yet forgotten, but still a faint presence, calling to you from beneath the waves. The storm builds around you, a reminder of the ancient power that once ruled the seas. The waters rise higher, swirling in a frenzy, as if the ocean itself is responding to the call of its forgotten god. The winds howl, carrying with them the scent of salt and danger. There is no mistaking it. Now the sea is not simply reacting to the storm. It is alive, aware, and angry. And in its depths, something stirs. In the ruins of an old temple, half buried in the sand, you find traces of a ritual and old prayer written in a language so ancient it is nearly unreadable. But there is something familiar about it. The markings are unmistakable. They are the same as the symbols you found earlier, the ones that appeared on the altars of Yam's followers. The same symbols that spoke of sacrifice, of binding, of invoking the sea god's fury. The ritual is clear now, more so than it ever was before. It is not a call to Yam, not a plea for his return, but a call for his wrath. The storm itself is the answer. It's the followers of Yam in their desperation did not simply seek his favor, they sought his fury. They believed that only by unleashing the full force of the sea goddess power could they restore balance to the world. They believed that if they could awaken him from his exile, he would return with a vengeance, cleansing the world of its sins. But they were wrong. The storm that is rising now is not Yam's answer. It is the result of a broken pact, a fractured covenant between the gods and the earth. The sky god, Baal, has not forgotten the destruction Yam wrought upon the heavens. He has not forgotten the challenge to his domain. And now, in the wake of the ritual, Baal's fury is unleashed once more. The storm does not care for the worshippers who called it forth. It does not care for the lives of those who sought to manipulate the gods. It is a force of nature, a force that does not heed the pleas of mortals, a force that will destroy all in its path. The winds roar louder and the waves rise higher, crashing against the rocks with an almost unnatural ferocity. In your mind, the ritual takes shape. It is the same ritual that was whispered in secret, passed down through generations of sailors and followers of Yam, the ritual that once called upon the sea god to rise from the depths and restore the balance between the sea and the sky. But now it is nothing more than a curse, as the ritual has failed. Yam will not return, not in the way they hoped. The price has already been paid. As the storm intensifies, you realize that the ritual did not call Yam Bakit, called something else, something darker, something more ancient. It is not the sea god who answers, but the ocean itself. The very heart of the sea, the primordial force that once ruled the earth, is rising again. It is the force that predates even the gods. The storm is not a sign of Yam's return, it is the beginning of something far worse. The wind howls louder and the sea churns beneath you, rising higher with each passing moment. The ocean is not simply responding to the storm, it is the beginning of the end, a reckoning for the world that has forgotten its gods. But what is it that the sea seeks now? What is it that calls to you from beneath the waves? The answer, it seems, is not so simple. The storm may have been summoned by the broken pact between the gods, but there is something more to it, something older, something deeper. The storm is not just the wrath of the sky god, it is the result of a cosmic shift, a rift between the realms of the gods and the earth. In the deepest parts of the ocean, you feel it the stirrings of a god long forgotten, a god whose name has been lost to time. It is not Yam, it is something older, something more primal. The storm is its voice, its call to the world. It's a reminder that the gods may fade, but the forces they represent are eternal. As you stand at the edge of the cliff, watching the storm rage around you, you realize that the storm is not simply a natural disaster. It is a reckoning. It is the breaking of the old order, the tearing apart of the veil that once separated the gods from the world of men. And in its wake, something new will rise, something that the world is not prepared for. The storm is not Yam's return. It is the return of something far older, something that was never meant to be forgotten. And now, as the winds howl and the sea crashes against the shore, you realize that you are witnessing the beginning of the end. The storm has come, and with it, a deafening silence. The winds scream, but there is no clarity in their grisly confusion, as if the very heavens themselves are caught in the throes of a violent rebirth. The sky, once calm and steady, now flickers with strange energies. The clouds twist and churn in patterns no mortal could ever interpret, shifting between shapes, faces, and symbols that are older than time itself. You stand at the cliff's edge, eyes fixed upon the tumultuous sky above. The sky god, Baal, is no longer a distant force of nature, but a living, raging entity. You feel the weight of his fury in the air, thick, heavy, suffocating. His presence, once distant and almost comforting in its grandeur, is now a force of utter annihilation. The thunder cracks, sharp and violent, as though the very heavens are being torn apart. You can almost hear Baal's voice in the rumbling sky, a voice that is not a call but a command. He's not speaking to the mortals below. His wrath is directed at something far greater. It is the ocean, the broken truce between the sky and the sea, something Baal cannot ignore. The echoes of the battle between the gods still reverberate through the storm. You sense it, the ancient clash of power, the tension that once tore the heavens apart. Yam had once ruled the seas with an iron fist, his power rivaling that of the sky itself. But now, in the wake of his exile, Baal stands unchallenged. His fury is unrelenting, and it is not just the ocean he seeks to control, but the very memories of the gods themselves. You remember the words whispered in the old temples? Those forgotten verses that spoke of a time when the sky and the sea were at peace? When Baal and Yam had once stood side by side, guiding the world in an eternal dance of balance. But that balance has long since been shattered, and now the sky god seeks to restore it, to reassert his dominance over all things. The storm intensifies, and the waves below crash with the force of 1,000 earthquakes. The sky and the sea are locked in a violent embrace, as though the two forces are waging war once more. The air is thick with the scent of ozone, and the very ground beneath your feet trembles with each thunderous strike. You can feel it, the god's wrath coursing through the atmosphere, a divine fury that seeks not just destruction, but a cleansing. But in the midst of this chaos, there is a question that gnaws at the edges of your mind. Why has Baal waited so long to strike? The sky god's anger is legendary, but his wrath has always been tempered by his need for control. He is not a god of reckless destruction. He is the ruler of the heavens, of law and order. Yet here he is, tearing apart the world with a fury that seems born not of justice, but of vengeance. You begin to understand. Baal's rage is not just about Yam's defiance. It is about something deeper, something primal. It is the fear of being dethroned, of losing control. The sky god's greatest fear was never Yam's strength, was the ocean's ability to consume all that stood in its way. The sea was an unpredictable force, a power that could not be contained. And in the sea god's fall, Baal saw an opportunity to ensure that such chaos could never rise again. The storm grows even darker. In a flicker of light, the unmistakable flash of lightning slices through the sky, illuminating the darkened waters below. You watch in awe and terror as the bolts of electricity strike the ocean, lighting up the waves in a brilliant, unnatural glow. The sea, for a moment, seems to burn with the fury of the heavens. It is here at the heart of this divine battle that you begin to see the true nature of Baal's wrath. It is not simply the punishment of the disobedient god Yamut, it is the punishment of the world itself. The sky god seeks to cleanse the earth, to erase the remnants of the old order, and to rebuild the world in his image. The storm, then, is not just an act of vengeance, it is a divine rebirth. A world cleansed of its sins, its false gods, its forgotten truths. But in that moment of illumination, as the lightning strikes and the storm rages, you catch a glimpse of something else's shadow beneath the waves, moving with a strange, almost deliberate grace. It is not the storm's work, nor is it Baal's fury. It is something else. The sea, once torn asunder by the clash of the gods, is now shifting once again, as though waking from a long slumber. For a fleeting second, you wonder perhaps Yam is not as forgotten as you once thought. Perhaps his defeat was not the end. Perhaps there is something in the depths, something ancient, waiting for the storm to pass. The question that lingers is not whether Yam will return, but what will happen when he does. As the lightning fades and the storm begins to settle, you realize that the sky god's wrath is not over. It is only the beginning of a much larger conflict, one that will unfold not in the heavens or on the earth, but deep beneath the ocean's surface, where the true forces of creation and destruction have always lain. The battle between Baal and Yam was never truly one of gods alone. It was a battle for the very soul of the world, a battle for control over the forces that shape the earth, sea, and the sky. And in this storm, in this divine reckoning, you are merely a witness to a story that has yet to reach its end. The storm has passed, leaving behind a landscape drenched in silence. The wind still howls, but it carries with it a different tone, soft, almost mournful, as though it mourns for something that has been lost. The waves have settled, but the scars of the storm remain. The ocean, once a chaotic realm of rage and power, now lies eerily still, as if exhausted by the violence it has witnessed. Yet, in the depths, the sea whispers. The ocean, it seems, has a voice of its own, one that is not shaped by the gods, but by something older, something that existed before the gods themselves. And as the storm fades, that voice calls out once more, echoing through the silence of the world. You return to the ruins, to the half-submerged temples and forgotten altars. Here, amidst the crumbling stones, you begin to understand the true cost of the gods' fall. The people who once worshipped Yam are long gone, their names lost to time, their prayers forgotten by the world. And yet their presence lingers, trapped in the echoes of the past. In the ancient texts you uncover, you see their devotion that is now turned to desperation. These were not simple prayers of reverence. These were cries for help, pleas for mercy from a God who had long since abandoned them. And in these prayers you find a chilling truth. The worshippers did not believe that Yam had truly fallen. They believed instead that he had been cast aside, forgotten by the heavens and the earth alike. But they did not give up hope. They believed that one day the sea god would return to reclaim what was rightfully his and restore the balance that had been lost. But what is the truth? What happened to Yam truly? You search through the texts, through the crumbling fragments, and find only more questions. Some speak of his exile, cast into the depths of the ocean by the wrath of the sky god. Others hint at a darker fate, that Yam in his madness had consumed himself, leaving only the echoes of his power behind. Still, others whisper that the sea god is not gone, but hiding, waiting for the right moment to return and claim the world once more. The silence grows heavier, presses in on you, as though the very weight of forgotten history is bearing down upon you. The ocean, once a source of power and mystery, is now a place of desolation. The gods are gone, their names erased from the earth, and yet their echoes remain haunting, unsettling, waiting for someone to listen, to remember. As you stand among the ruins, you feel it a presence, not of the gods, but of something else. It is the feeling of being watched, of being aware of something that is not quite there, but still lingers in the air. It is the knowledge that even in their absence, the gods have not left. They have simply faded, becoming shadows in the wind, whispers in the waves. And yet, as you sift through the ancient fragments, you uncover something else, something that should not be. A forbidden text hidden among the ruins that speaks of a ritual far darker than the others you have seen. This ritual, unlike any other, does not seek to call upon the gods, it seeks to erase them. It is a ritual designed to sever the connection between the mortal world and the divine, to cleanse the earth of its old gods and replace them with something new. The ritual speaks of an ancient power, one that predates even the gods themselves. It speaks of the void, the space between the stars, the empty nothingness that existed before creation. It is a place of great power, but also great danger. To call upon the void is to invite destruction, to invite the end of all things. And yet, the text suggests that this power, this darkness, is the only way to restore balance to the world. You shudder at the thought. The void is not a place to be trifled with. It is not a god to be worshipped, but a force that devours all it touches. And yet the text suggests that some believed it was the only way. To bring Yam back, to call him from the depths of the ocean and restore him to his former glory, but at what cost? The echoes of the past grow louder now, the whispers of the forgotten gods calling out from the deep. They are not voices of guidance, but of warning. The sea god's power was not one to be trifled with. His wrath, once unleashed, could not be contained. And yet there is still something within the Oceana pulse, a rhythm that hints at his presence buried beneath the surface, waiting. But is it Yam, or is it something else? Something darker, more ancient, and far more dangerous. As you look out across the ocean, you feel it, the sense that the world is on the edge of something terrible, something that cannot be undone. The gods are gone, yes, but their legacy remains. The echoes of their power, their influence, still linger in the winds and the waves. And somewhere, deep beneath the surface, something waits. You hear it now, that faint whisper? It is the voice of the sea. It is the voice of a god long forgotten, and it is calling you. The world is not done with its gods. It's not yet. There are echoes still to be heard, and those echoes will haunt the world for as long as the tides continue to turn. The ocean remains silent, but that silence is not peace. It is the absence of something, a void, where once there was a presence, a living force that controlled the ebb and flow of tides, storms, and the very rhythms of the world. Now, in the aftermath of the storm, there is nothing but stillness. The waves have settled into a quiet lull, their familiar roar replaced by an unsettling calm. You stand at the edge of the shore, staring out into the waters. There is no wind, no sound, just the overwhelming weight of absence. The sea, once an active force, now feels empty, as if it has lost its soul. The silence is heavy, thick with the remnants of an ancient presence. The air is charged with a tension you cannot explain. A feeling that someone once ruled here, and that presence is no longer with you. The legend of Yam, the sea god, speaks of a time when the ocean itself was his domain. When every wave, Every current, every storm answered to him. But now, there is only this stillness, this haunting quiet. You cannot shake the feeling that the ocean is waiting for something, or someone. As the sun sets and the last light of the day fades, you make your way to the water's edge, compelled by a force you cannot fully comprehend. You kneel by the water, your fingers brushing the wet sand, the salt clinging to your skin. In the darkness, the water shimmers, and for a brief moment, you think you see something beneath the surface in indistinct shape, moving with a strange grace, slipping through the depths like a shadow. You stand, heart racing, but the image vanishes as quickly as it appeared, yet you feel it, the pull, the unspoken invitation. You realize then that the silence is not the end, but the beginning of something else. The ocean has not forgotten Yem. No, the ocean has not forgotten the god who once ruled its depths. It is only waiting for the right moment, the right soul, to awaken it once more. In your search through ancient ruins, you uncovered texts that spoke of the sea god's disappearance. The worshippers had believed he had abandoned them, cast aside by the wrath of the sky god. But the truth, it seems, is more complicated. Yam's disappearance was not an act of betrayal, it was a quiet exile. The sea god, once a titan of the waves, had simply vanished. The waves no longer roared in his name, tides no longer swelled in his wake, and for centuries, the world moved on. But there is something within the ocean, a pulse, an ancient rhythm, a presence that is never fully left. It is not the ocean itself, but something more primal, more dangerous. The ocean is not empty. It is full of secrets, of gods long forgotten, and of powers that still linger beneath the surface. The more you search, the more you uncover the unsettling truth. Yam's power did not dissipate. When he was cast into exile, it simply faded into the background, swallowed by the depths. It became a memory, a whisper, but not a true absence. For a god cannot simply die. The divine is eternal. Even in exile, Yam's power lingers in the currents, in the shadows, in the silent waters. But why? Why has Yam not returned? And why, after all these years, do you feel the call of the ocean as strongly as you do? The texts are clear. Yam's followers believed he would one day return. They believed that his power, hidden deep beneath the waves, would rise again when the time was right. But what did they truly know of the sea god's fate? Did they know, as you now suspect, that his power was never truly gone? Or did they, too, fall victim to the lie that the gods once banished could never return? You find yourself thinking of the markings on the ancient altars, the signs that once led worshippers to the sea. One symbol stands out, a circle, split in half. It represents the duality of the ocean and sky, of Yam and Baal, of the great forces that once balanced the world. But now that circle is broken. It is incomplete. The symbol speaks of a time when the gods were united, when they controlled the heavens and the waters in tandem. But that time is gone. The forces that once bound the gods together have shattered, leaving only this silence behind. And yet, the sea whispers. In the quiet, in the stillness, there is a subtle, plain, unspoken promise that things are not finished. That there is more to this story, more to this world, than you have yet uncovered. Yam's exile, his disappearance, it is not the end. It is a beginning. As the waves lap gently against the shore, you realize something unsettling. The ocean is not merely waiting for Yam to return. The ocean is waiting for someone to call upon him once more. It is waiting for a new worshipper, one who will summon the sea god back from the depths, back from his long exile. Could it be you? Are you the one who will break the silence and awaken Yam once more? You cannot say for certain. But the question remains, burning in your mind like the fading light of the day. And the ocean once again calls to you. The god is not gone. Yam waits just beneath the surface. The ocean no longer stirs alone. The wind has returned, not with the grace of old, but with the fury of something awakened. It is the wind that once whispered across the water, that brought the scent of salt and storm to the shores. It is the wind that carried the voices of the gods, and now, in the stillness after the storm, stirs again, its voice heavy with forgotten power. You feel it before you hear it, the soft rustle of air moving through the broken ruins, shifting the sands beneath your feet. The wind picks up, quiet at first, then growing stronger, as if the very atmosphere itself is being drawn into a cosmic current. It's not the gentle sea breeze you once knew, but a force more ancient, a wind that speaks of a time when the sea and sky were united in their eternal dance. There is something unsettling in its movement, a strange and unfamiliar rhythm that no longer feels natural. The wind is not simply passing over the land, it is pulling you towards something. A presence, hidden but not gone, stirs beneath the surface, and the air grows heavy, as if charged with divine energy. You step forward, feeling the wind whip around you, and there, in the distance, you see it a shift in the very horizon. The wind carries with it the scent of the sea, but it also carries something more, something darker. The storm has left its mark, not just on the world around you, but on the very air itself. It is as if the world is being remade, reshaped by forces far beyond mortal comprehension. The sea god Yam is not merely a memory now. He is a presence, a force that exists just beyond the veil of perception, waiting for the right moment to return, and that moment may have come. As the wind rises, you recall the ancient rituals. The prayers of the faithful who once called upon Yam, their words whispered in secret, spoke not just of reverence, but of a dangerous knowledge. They knew, as you now suspect, that the sea god could not simply be summoned back through ritual alone. No, the return of a god requires more. It requires the perfect convergence of force as wind water, and earth each element playing its part in the divine restoration. And now, it seems, the time is upon you. The wind that moves through the ruins is not just a natural force. It is the breath of the gods themselves, calling out to you, guiding you toward the ancient altar where Yam's worshippers once gathered. The wind is carrying with it the echoes of that forgotten time, when the sea god ruled over all, and when his followers knew the secret of his return. You follow the wind, drawn toward the altar, now partially submerged in the rising tide. The sand has shifted, and the ruins are now partly hidden beneath the water, as if the sea itself is reclaiming what was once lost. The wind howls louder, and in its fury, you hear a voice, a whisper, faint and distant, but unmistakable. It is Yam, not in full form, but in the echoes of his power. His presence is not one of calm, but of longing for the balance that was once broken, for the world that was once his. The ritual, long buried in forgotten texts, begins to take shape in your mind. The elements must align. The air must stir, the water must rise, and the earth must tremble. The wind, the sea, and the earth are speaking to you now, calling you to complete the ancient cycle that began with the god's fall. But the price, is not one that can be easily paid. For to awaken Yam is to call forth not only his power, but his wrath. I wonder what has been waiting in the depths all these years. Is it Yam or something else entirely? The echoes of his power seem to call to you, but they are not the familiar whispers of a god long forgotten. They are the murmurs of something far older, something that preceded even the gods themselves. The wind picks up again, now howling with the force of a gale, and the sea stirs beneath you. The ocean, once calm, now churns violently, as if responding to a command. The waves rise higher, crashing against the rocks with renewed fury. The tide has turned. The elements have converged, and the moment is almost upon you. And then, as you stand at the altar, the wind begins to settle, and the waters calm. A strange stillness falls over the world, as if time itself is holding its breath. You realize then that this is no ordinary moment. The return of the gods, the return of Yam, is not a simple matter of ritual. It is a cosmic event, one that will reshape the very fabric of the world. In the distance, you hear a sound low, almost imperceptible at first, but growing louder with each passing moment. It is the sound of the ocean, but it is not the crashing of waves. It is the sound of something deeper, something more ancient. It is the sound of the sea god's power stirring beneath the surface, awakening from its long slumber. The wind rises again, carrying with it the scent of salt and storm. As the ocean stirs once more, and you can feel it, the presence of the sea god, Yam, just beyond the veil. It is not a return, not yet, but the stirring of something immense, something ancient. You have called upon him. You have brought the elements together, and the wind, the water, and the earth have answered. But what will happen next? Is Yam truly returning? Or is it something else, something older, something more terrifying? The sea holds its breath. The world holds its breath. And you, standing at the edge of the altar, realize that you have awakened something that may never again be put to rest. The calm of the ocean seems almost unnatural now. The waves have receded, leaving only a faint, uneasy ripple that echoes through the stillness. But beneath that surface, you feel the weight of something ancient stirring in. Energy that is neither calm nor peaceful, but restless, awaiting the moment to reassert itself. The wind is settled, but its eerie silence lingers, hanging in the air like a veil, a reminder of the unsettling presence you now face. You are not alone here. You sense that there are others who have been drawn to this place, to this moment, just as you were. But they are not visible. They are shadows, lingering in the periphery of your awareness. They are the forgotten witnesses, those who once sought Yam's return, but who vanished long ago. Their names have been lost, their bodies claimed by the sea, their prayers unanswered. The ruins around you stand as the only testament to their existence, half buried by sand and salt water. Yet their presence, their devotion, is still felt in the air, haunting, pervasive. The worshippers who once knelt at this very altar believed with all their hearts that Yam would rise again. They believed that his power, buried deep beneath the waves, would one day awaken, and when it did, the world would be remade in his image. But they, like so many before them, have vanished without a trace. In the distance, you hear the faint sound of waves crashing against the rocks. But the usual rhythm is off, disrupted by something else, something deeper, something more sinister. It is as if the ocean itself is remembering. The waters that once carried the prayers of Yam's followers now seem to swallow their voices, erasing them from existence. You recall the forbidden texts you uncovered, the ones that spoke of the sacrifice. Required to awaken Yam, the rituals were not merely to honor him. They were meant to bind him, to return him to the world, to make him a god once more. But at what cost? Was this the price of devotion, the ultimate price for calling upon a god whose power had long been hidden beneath the surface? These people, these worshippers, had sacrificed more than they could ever know. Had sacrificed themselves to an idea, to a memory that had become too dangerous to retain. But the question remains, why did they disappear? What happened to them? Where did they go? And why was their devotion never returned? You return to the altar, feeling the cold stone beneath your fingertips, and you see it, the mark. The same symbol you've seen before, etched into the ancient stones. A circle, broken, incomplete. The ritual was never fully finished.
Ow.
The cycle was never completed. And in this incompletion, something was lost.
Ow.
Something was erased. Was it Yam's will? Or was it the force that lies beneath the ocean's surface? Something older than the gods themselves? This is the great mystery, the one that gnaws at your mind, that refuses to be understood. The worshippers who vanished, the prayers that went unanswered, they are but fragments of a larger truth, one that you are only beginning to understand. And yet the silence presses in. The ocean is waiting, and the wind is still, but the air is thick with the weight of history. As you stand before the altar, you realize that there is no clear answer. The gods are gone, their stories forgotten. The worshippers have faded into the past, their names lost to the tide. But the question remains, is this the end or the beginning? The ocean does not answer, nor does the wind. But in the stillness, you feel it, the stirrings of something powerful, something that lies just beyond your understanding. The sea has not forgotten, it never forgets. The memories of the gods, their legacies linger in the waves, in the air, in the earth. And as the last of the worshippers fade into oblivion, the ocean remembers them. The cycle is not finished. And you, standing at the altar, have become part of it. In the quiet, in the fading echoes of the forgotten, there is a realization. The gods may have faded, but they are not gone. The presence lingers in the land, in the sea, in the whispers of the wind. And in that lingering presence, something waits, something that will one day return. But for now, the world holds its breath. The ocean holds its secrets. We're left with only the memory of what was, and what may yet come. You stand on the precipice, gazing out at the vast ocean that now stretches before you. Its surface still, and seemingly indifferent. But beneath that calm, beneath the glistening waves, the heart of the world beats a pulse so ancient, so primordial that it carries with it the weight of forgotten ages. And in that pulse, you feel the stirrings of something ancient, something not yet fully awake. Beneath the water, hidden in the dark places where no mortal has ever dared venture, lies the ruin of a city. Once, it was a place of power, a sanctuary to Yam, the god of the sea. Its spires reached high above the surface, and its streets teemed with life the faithful who had gathered in his name, believing that the sea god would one day return to claim the earth. But now, all that remains of that once great city is ruin, swallowed by the tides lost to time. The water here is not clear, not like the shallow shores where the waves lap at the sand. It is murky, thick with the weight of centuries of salt and decay. You know that the city lies just beneath the surface, waiting for the day when the tides will shift and the waters will recede, revealing the truth of what was lost. The ruins have been forgotten by all, save for a few whispered legends that speak of an altar, hidden deep in the heart of the city, where the final ritual was meant to be performed. It was here, they say, that Yam's worshippers sought to bind him to the mortal world, bring him back from his exile and restore his rule over the seas. But something went wrong, something darker than anyone could have foreseen. The ritual was never completed, the god never returned, and the city was lost, buried beneath the crushing weight of the ocean. You feel the weight of that lost history pressing down on you, the sense that the answers you seek lie just beyond your reach. The ruins are calling to you. But you know that to dive deeper into their waters is to invite something dangerous. The ocean, as vast and endless as it is, holds more than the memories of forgotten gods. It holds something else, something that was never meant to be disturbed. The ocean does not forgive. It remembers every god, every worshipper, every sacrifice made in its depths. The price of awakening Yam, of calling him back to the world, is not one that can be easily paid. The ritual, when it was first attempted, was not merely a prayer, it was a binding, a command to the very forces of nature. And that command, once given, cannot be undone. You dive into the water, feeling the cold depths swallow you as you descend. The world above seems to fade away, replaced by the suffocating silence of the deep. The pressure builds, as though the ocean itself is pushing back, refusing to let you move forward, but you are determined. You know that within the darkness below, within the ruins of Yam's once great city, the answers you seek are waiting. The deeper you go, the darker the water becomes. It is as though the very essence of the sea is pulling at you, urging you to stop, to turn back. The air grows thick in your lungs, and you realize that the ocean is not just a physical space, it is a realm. A place where time and memory are distorted, where gods are born and forgotten, where the very fabric of existence is twisted. And then, as you reach the heart of the ruins, you see a Tan altar covered in moss and coral, half submerged in the water. It is ancient, older than any structure you've ever seen, its stones worn smooth by the passage of countless years. At its center lies a symbol familiar but distorted, a circle, broken, incomplete. The very same symbol you've seen throughout the ruins, etched into the walls, carved into the altars. This is where it all began. This is where the ritual was meant to be completed. But something went wrong. The ritual was interrupted, the god was not summoned, and the city was swallowed by the ocean. But the altar remains a silent witness to the past, a remnant of a time when the gods walked the earth. You approach the altar, your fingers brushing against the cold stone. As you touch it, you feel a pulse, a faint vibration, almost imperceptible, but undeniable. The altar is not just a relic. It is a conduit, a bridge between the mortal world and the divine. And as you touch it, you feel the pull of the ocean, the pull of the god, Yam. The water around you begins to stir, not from the currents of the sea, but from something deeper, something that lies beneath the surface. The altar, once cold and dormant, begins to hum with energy. The power of the sea god, long dormant, begins to awaken. But this is not Yam's return, not yet. The ocean is not simply remembering the god. It is remembering something else, something far older, far darker. The ruins of the city, the altar, and the ritual, they are all part of something greater, something that has been waiting in the depths for eons. And now, as the water swirls around you, You realize that you have awakened something far more dangerous than you ever intended. The ocean is not simply a place of gods, it is a place of forgotten horrors, of ancient forces that have been sealed away for a reason. You can feel the weight of that power pressing down on you. The realization that you are no longer just a witness to the past, you are part of it. The ocean has remembered and it has chosen you. As you rise from the altar, the water around you shifts again, and the ruins begin to dissolve into the deep, swallowed by the tides. The city, once a place of life and devotion, is now lost again, buried beneath the crushing weight of the ocean. The answers you sought remain elusive, hidden once more in the dark places of the world, but the ocean remembers. It will never forget, and neither will you. The sea swells beneath you, its surface rippling with energy, but it is not the ocean that stirs. It is the very fabric of the world, the tension between sky and sea, between the forces of the heavens and the depths that have been broken, and now the crack between them grows wider with every passing moment. As you surface from the dark ruins, gasping for air, you hear it the unmistakable sound of thunder, low and rumbling, as though the heavens themselves are reacting to the disturbance in the ocean's depths. The storm has returned, but this time, it is not just the sky that is in turmoil. The ocean churns in response as though it too is reclaiming its place in the world. The wind, once calm, now howls with a violent intensity, tearing through the air, dragging the sea and sky together in a vicious dance of power. The balance between the gods, the sky god, Baal, and the sea god, Yam, was once a delicate truce. The elements moved in harmony, each god ruling their domain with a careful eye, ensuring the world spun in a rhythm of cosmic balance. But that balance has been shattered. You're a witness to the aftermath. Caught in the space where the realms of the sea and sky have torn apart, you feel it in your bones. The gods are no longer confined to their realms. The sky is darkening, but not with the usual storm clouds. These clouds are thick, as if the heavens themselves are giving birth to something new, something that has been hidden from the world for too long. The lightning strikes down, jagged and furious, as though it is seeking something below, something beneath the surface of the ocean. For the first time since you began your journey, you truly understand the nature of the conflict that has unfolded. It was never simply a struggle between two gods, but a war that would tear apart the fabric of the world itself. The clash between Baal and Yam, the sky god and the sea god, was not just a battle of power, but a battle of order itself. The sky sought to maintain dominion over the world, to assert his control, to remind the earth of his superiority. But the ocean resisted. The sea does not bow to the sky. It is an unpredictable force, one that cannot be tamed or confined. But the sky god's wrath has been given form in the storm. The air crackles with energy, and you feel the immense pressure pushing against you. The wind is no longer just wind. 'Tis alive with the anger of Baal, a god whose power has been awakened, whose rage has been ignited by the disturbance in the deep. And the ocean is not far behind. The waters rise in response, as if they too are pushing against the boundaries that once held them. You wonder if you have gone too far, if the boundary you crossed when you invoked the name of Yam has triggered something you cannot control. Perhaps the gods were never meant to return. Perhaps their power was meant to remain sealed beneath the surface, buried in the depths where even their worshippers dared not disturb them. As the sky grows darker and the winds howl louder, you realize the full extent of the destruction that is unfolding. The sky god's wrath is no longer a distant threat. It is a reality, a force that is now descending upon the earth. The lightning strikes again, this time splitting the heavens with a blinding flash that illuminates the sea and the sky in a brief, violent blaze. In the heart of the storm, amidst the crashing waves and the violent winds, you see it a figure not in the form of Yam, but a manifestation of something much older, something far more primal. It is the embodiment of the ocean, of the void, a presence that predates the gods. It is the force that once ruled the world before the gods were born. And now, as the storm rages, that presence stirs once more. The wind pushes against you, and the sea rises higher, as if it is dragging you into the depths. You struggle to stay afloat, to maintain your grasp on the edge of the world, but the forces at play are too strong. The sky and the sea are merging, becoming one. And you realize that this is the moment when the final conflict between the sky and the sea will take place. But it is not just a battle between gods. It is a battle for the very soul of the earth. And in this battle, you are not just a witness. You are part of it. The choices you made, the steps you took, have brought you here, to the breaking point. The sea and the sky are no longer distinct, separate forces. They are becoming one, and the world you once knew is beginning to unravel. The storm is a manifestation of that unraveling, a sign that the balance between these great forces has been shattered beyond repair. You realize that the destruction is not merely the result of the sky god's wrath. It is a consequence of a world that has forgotten its gods, of a world that has tried to move on without them. The storm, the sea's rage, the sky's fury, they are the backlash of that forgetting. The gods cannot be erased. They are eternal, and when their power is ignored, it comes back in ways that no mortal can control. The storm rages on, but you do not feel fear. You feel something else, a strange sense of inevitability. This is the end, the breaking of the old world. The clash between the sea and the sky has reached its zenith, yet even in this chaos, you understand that this is not just an ending. It is a new beginning, a beginning that will reshape the world. One in which the gods are no longer silent, no longer forgotten. As the lightning strikes one final time, the world seems to pause, suspended between the heavens and the earth, between the sea and the sky. And then, as the storm quiets, you hear it, the voice of the ocean. It is not a whisper. It is a roar, a command. And in that command you hear the name Yam. The gods have returned, but not as you expected. The storm fades, its fury spent. But the silence it leaves behind is not one of peace. It is the silence of the world holding its breath, waiting for something ancient and forgotten to rise once more. The air hangs heavy, laden with the remnants of divine conflict. The tension between sky and sea still palpable in the very winds that blow through the ruins. You stand at the edge of the now stilled ocean, gazing into the depths. The sea, once again calm, seems almost unnatural in its stillness. The waves no longer crash against the shore. They roll gently, quietly, as if the ocean itself is resting, recovering from a battle that has shaken the very foundations of the world. But you know it is not over. The calm is only a lull, a brief moment of respite before the inevitable return. The storm has passed, yes, but the gods, both sky and sea, are not finished with their struggle. The balance already shattered can never be restored. What was lost in the breaking of the truce can never be undone. You step forward, your feet sinking slightly into the wet sand as you approach the water's edge. The scent of salt and ozone still clings to the air, mingling with the earthy fragrance of the ruined temple behind you. You can feel the ocean calling to you, its pull stronger than ever. It is not a call of desire nor of affection, but one of need. The ocean is not whole. The god of the sea is not at peace. The return is not complete. It is a moment of unfinished business, an ending that has not yet been written. The altar, where the ritual began so long ago, still stands behind you, half buried in sand, half submerged by the relentless tide. Symbol, the broken circle, is now a haunting presence in the quiet of the beach. It is not just a mark of the past. It is a promise of what is yet to come. In the distance, the sky has cleared, but the horizon is a strange sight. The clouds are broken, torn apart, as if the storm was not just a physical tempest, but the tearing of the very fabric of the world itself. The sky now seems distant, unreachable, as though it has become untethered from the earth. The gods have left their marks on the world, but they have also left a rift, a tear in the order of things. And now the sea calls to you. It calls not as a god, but as a force primal, unstoppable, a force that has been waiting in silence for millennia. The sea god Yam may have been erased, may have been driven into exile, but his essence remains. It is buried beneath the waves, hidden in the depths, waiting for someone to remember him, to call him back into the world. You'll hear the whisper again, this time not in the wind, but in the water. It is a murmur, faint but unmistakable, Yam's name. His voice, you know now that he was never truly gone. He has always been there, in the deep, in the unseen currents, in the forgotten spaces between the worlds of gods and men. The realization comes slowly, like the rising tide. Yam's fall was not the end of his reign. It was merely a shift to change in the balance of power, a pause in the eternal rhythm between the sea and the sky. The struggle between these two gods will never end. It will only shift and change, just as the tides rise and fall with each passing day. But Yam, he has not forgotten. Even in exile, even in silence, his power lingers in the depths. It is not a power that can be erased. It is not a force that can be dismissed. The gods may be absent, but the ocean remains, and the ocean is never truly empty. As you stand on the shore, gazing into the infinite expanse of water, you feel the truth sink into your bones. Yam has not returned as a god, but as a memory, as a force that transcends time and space. He is not a being that can be summoned or controlled. He is the sea itself. The sea is his domain, and it remembers all that has ever happened within its depths. Even in the absence of his worshippers, even in the fading of his name, the ocean remains a living, breathing testament to his eternal presence. And as you turn from the water, your thoughts dark and heavy with the weight of what you have uncovered, you understand that you are not alone. There are others too who remember. Others who know that the gods, even in their exile, are never truly gone. They live on in the world's very fabric, in the shifting tides, in the ancient ruins, in the whispers of the wind and the waves. The sea may be silent, but it is never empty. It is filled with echoes of a time long past, of gods long forgotten, of worshippers lost to history. And you too are part of that story. You are a witness, a keeper of the ancient knowledge that the gods may fade, but they never truly leave. The ocean, silent now, holds its breath. But the time for silence has passed. The world has been changed, and there is no going back. The stillness of the sea does not bring comfort. It brings a haunting silence, the kind that precedes an inevitable collapse. A fall that is not noticed until it has already occurred. The world feels different now, as if the very foundations have shifted beneath your feet. And the shadows that once lingered at the edge of your vision have grown longer, more pronounced. The ocean stretches endlessly before you, its surface as smooth as glass. But beneath that mirror-like exterior, the waves still stir. They are no longer visible to the eye, but they move deeper than the surface, in patterns that echo the movement of something far larger than the gods. And though the water may be still now, it will never be calm for long. The ocean is never truly at rest. The sea has not forgotten the god that once ruled it, and you are beginning to understand that the true cost of Yam's fall is far greater than any mortal could have imagined. The gods are not simply absent from the world. Their absence leaves a void, a gap that is filled not with peace, but with an unsettling presence. The waves no longer rise and fall in the way they once did. Instead, they quiver beneath the surface, restless, searching for something that has been lost. Searching for a balance that cannot be restored. You wonder in the quiet of this desolate shore, if this is the true fall of the waves, if this is the world. Now unmoored from its gods, slowly sinking into an abyss of its own making. The wind is still, but there is a weight in the air. A heaviness that clings to you like a second skin. You think of the worshippers who once gathered at the altars of Yam, their faces hidden in the shadows of time. Their prayers, their sacrifices were not enough to bring back the god. And now, the ocean ungoverned has turned in on itself. It is not just the sea that has fallen. It is the very order of things that has collapsed. A shiver runs down your spine. As you remember the final words from the ancient texts, you uncovered words that spoke of a god's return, but not as a savior, not as a force of creation. No, the return of Yam was always meant to be something darker, something more complicated. The sea god was not simply a protector or a ruler, but a force that held the very essence of the world in balance. And now, with that balance broken, the world is falling inch by inch into disarray. You turn back toward the temple ruins, the altar still standing as a testament to a time that has passed. The symbols that once marked the sacred space as those broken. Incomplete circles speak of a time when the gods walked the earth, when there was a rhythm to the world that could be felt in the tides, in the wind, in the very air itself. But now, the rhythm is fractured. There's no longer a flow to the world, no longer a harmony between earth, sky, and sea. You look at the altar, at the markings, and you understand at last what it means. The broken circle was not a mistake, nor a symbol of defeat. It was a warning, a reminder that the forces of the gods could never be truly erased, that the gods themselves were always in a state of flux. Their power shifting and changing, never static. But now, that change is no longer confined to the divine. It is spilling over into the world of mortals. The waves, the sea, the sky, they no longer follow the rhythm of the gods. The fall of the waves is not just the fall of a god. It is the fall of the world itself. A world where gods were once the thread that held it all together, but now that thread has unraveled. The questions that you have carried with you throughout this journey now swirl in your mind like the wind, caught in the same restless pattern that churns the sea. What happens when the gods fall? When their power is forgotten? When their names are erased? Does the world fall with them? Or does it continue, lost, struggling to hold itself together? You have seen the answers, and they are not simple. The gods may be gone, but their power lingers in the world, hidden beneath the surface, in the depths of the ocean, in the air that blows through the ruins, in the very soil beneath your feet. But what is that power now? Is it a force for creation, or is it a force of destruction? The fall of the waves is not an event that can be measured in time. It is an ongoing process, a gradual decay, a steady disintegration of everything that was once held together by divine hands. The sea is no longer a place of order, no longer a place where the tides follow the rhythms of the gods. It is a place of chaos, of wildness, of forgotten power. And yet you know that this is only the beginning. You feel it now, in the stillness of the air, in the heavy silence that follows the storm. The end of one world always marks the beginning of another. But what world will emerge from the fall of the waves? What new order will rise from the depths of the ocean, from the ruins of the gods? The answers remain hidden beneath the surface, just out of reach, waiting for someone to look deeper, to dive into the depths where the sea's true nature lies. But for now, you are left with the fragments, the broken pieces of a world that is no more. The waves have fallen, the gods have fallen, and now the world stands at the edge of something unknown, something that will rise from the ruins, from the chaos of forgotten power. But what it will be, what it will become, no one can say. There is a path, one that no longer exists on any map, no longer carved into the earth, yet it is there, buried beneath the sands, and forgotten by the world. It is the path of those who once walked in the shadows of the gods, who sought to bring them back, who believed that their prayers and rituals would restore the balance. They too were lost to time, to the great tides of history that swept away their names, their memories, their very essence. You trace this path, not with your feet, but with your mind, the way the wind traces its invisible course over the land. The path was once clear, once walked by those who knew the way to the gods' domain, who understood the language of the waves, the rhythm of the tides. It led to places where the sea and the sky met, where the boundary between the mortal world and the divine was thin enough to cross. But now, that path is lost, swallowed by time, erased by the relentless force of the elements. The ruins of the temples, the altars where Yam's worshippers once knelt, are scattered across the earth, their stones crumbling into the sand. The symbols carved into the walls are fading, their meanings lost. The last of the worshippers vanished without a trace, leaving behind only the echoes of their devotion, the memory of their faith. The path was not meant to be easy, nor was it meant to be walked by just anyone. It was a path for those who were willing to sacrifice everything, to give up their lives, their very selves, in the name of a god who may never return. They believed in the power of the ocean, and the god who ruled it. They believed that if they called upon Yam, if they performed the rituals with enough fervor, enough devotion, the god would rise again, bringing with him the old order, the world that was once balanced and whole. But they were wrong. The path they walked was not one that would lead to restoration. It was one that led only to emptiness, to silence, to the slow decay of a forgotten world. And now, that path is no longer visible. It has been erased, just like the god they once worshipped, just like the hope they once had. You stand on the edge of this forgotten path, looking at the ruins that surround you. The last of the temples, the last of the altars, are crumbling into dust. There's no one left to walk this path. There's no one left to seek the gods. The worshippers are gone, their faith extinguished like the flame of a dying candle. And yet, something in the wind tells you that the path has not been entirely lost. It remains buried beneath the earth, hidden beneath the waves, waiting for someone to remember, to seek, to walk it again. But what is left of the path now? What is left of the gods? The ocean still moves, the sky still looms above, but there is no balance between them, no harmony. The world is fractured, its order shattered, its rhythm broken. The gods may have been forgotten, but their absence has left a void that cannot be filled by mortal hands. You wonder, as you stand among the ruins, if the path can ever be reclaimed. If there is any way to return to the old ways, to restore the balance between sea and sky, can the gods be called back? Or is the world now too far gone, too far removed from the divine to ever return to what it once was? The path lies before you, but it is no longer the path of worshippers, no longer the path of those who sought the gods. It is a path of shadows, a path of forgotten truths, of lost knowledge. It is a path that only the brave or the desperate would dare to walk. And yet, there is a strange pull, a compulsion that calls you to take the first step, to seek what has been lost, to discover what remains hidden beneath the surface of the world. The question is no longer whether the gods can return. It is whether the world is ready for them. Is the world still worthy of their power? Is there still a place for them in a world so fractured, so broken? Or have the gods truly faded, their power lost to time, their memory swallowed by the tides? You stand on the edge of the abandoned path, feeling the weight of history pressing down on you. The weight of the forgotten gods, the forgotten worshippers, the forgotten world. You know, deep down, that this is not the end. This is only the beginning of something else, a journey into the unknown. A journey into the darkness where the gods once ruled. And so, you take the first step. You leave behind the ruins, the silence, and the empty shore. You walk the path, not knowing where it will lead, not knowing what you will find at the end. But you know this. The path may be forgotten, but it is not finished. The journey is far from over. There are more gods, more secrets, more lost truths waiting to be uncovered. The gods have not left. They are waiting. Waiting for someone to remember. Waiting for someone to listen. The journey you began, uncertain and fraught with unanswered questions, has now led you to a place beyond time, beyond mortal comprehension. The path wins before you, but it is no longer a path of discovery. It is a path of reckoning, a path that leads to the heart of the storm, to the very core of the sea, where the gods' power once swirled in the currents, shaping the world and all within it. The final step, you realize, is not one taken in search of answers, but in search of truth. There is no going back now, no turning away from the power that you have awakened. The gods may have faded from memory, their names forgotten, but their influence is etched into the very earth itself. It lingers in the air you breathe, in the waves that crash upon the shore, in the very soil beneath your feet. It is not gone. It has simply been buried, waiting for someone to remember, waiting for someone to listen. You walk deeper, following the winding path through the ruins. The stones, worn smooth by centuries of salt and time, seem to pulse with a strange energy. The symbols etched into them, the same broken circles, the same twisted sigils are not just remnants of a forgotten religion. They are warnings, markers, guides to something darker. Yeah, you feel it. Now the weight of a curse that has been hanging over this land for centuries, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. The altar is no longer a place of worship, but a place of finality. The broken circle you've seen so many times is not just a symbol of an incomplete ritual. It is a curse one that binds the gods to this world, one that keeps them from leaving, keeps them from reclaiming their dominion. The gods have always been imprisoned here, locked in a struggle between the sea and the sky, between the forces of creation and destruction. And now, with your presence, the final act of this cosmic drama begins. You feel it in the air, the electricity that crackles, the heavy tension that presses down upon you. The storm is not just a natural occurrence, it is the manifestation of a curse, one that was laid upon this world when the truce between the sea and the sky was broken. The balance was disrupted, and the world was left to deteriorate, to fall into ruin. And now, the curse is about to be fulfilled. The ocean, once calm and still, begins to stir again. The waters rise, slowly at first, as if awakening from a deep sleep. The wind picks up and you hear the familiar howl, the shriek of the sky god's wrath. But this time, it is different. It is not the power of Baal that stirs the storm. It is the power of the ocean, the power of Yam, the forgotten god who once ruled the seas. The power that has been waiting, hidden beneath the surface, is rising once more. But this is not a return. No, it is the culmination of a broken covenant. The final act of a world that has been fractured beyond repair. The curse was not meant to bring salvation. It was meant to bind, to imprison. And now, as the winds howl and the sea surges, you realize that you have not called forth a god, you have called forth the end of the world. The final curse is not one of destruction, but one of eternal imprisonment. Yam's power, the ocean's power, will never be free. It will remain bound to this world, tied to the broken circle, to the unfinished ritual, to the gods who cannot leave. The sea will continue to rise, the winds will continue to howl, and the world will remain in a state of endless conflict, never finding peace, never finding rest. And you, standing at the altar, feel the weight of that curse pressing down upon you. You are not the cause of this curse, but you are the one who has awakened it. The gods are not dead, not gone. They are trapped, imprisoned by their own power, by the rituals that sought to control them. The storm is their rage, their fury, their unfulfilled longing to break free of the world that has kept them confined. As the waters rise higher, you know that there is no turning back. You have crossed the threshold, and now there is no escape from the storm that is about to engulf the world. The sea god's power is rising, but it will not bring salvation. It will bring only more chaos, more conflict, more cycles of power that cannot be broken. The curse has been set in motion, and the world will never be the same. You stand at the edge of the altar, the ocean rising beneath you, the storm howling above you, and you realize the truth. The gods are not gone. They are trapped, bound by their own power, imprisoned in a world that can never be at peace. And you, a witness to their fall, are now part of that cycle, caught in the endless tides of the curse. If your candle hasn't gone out, then you're probably ready for the next god. The world you have come to know is not the same as it was before. The silence that once pressed upon the earth like a forgotten memory now feels like a weight, a presence that lingers in the spaces between thoughts. The storm has calmed, but the air is thick with the scent of salt, of the sea that is never truly forgotten. Even now, as the winds die down and the waves slow to a gentle roll, you feel the pulse of something beneath the surface, calling, waiting. The sky, once bright with the promise of the gods, now hangs heavy with the unresolved tension of their absence. The storm that once tore through the heavens has left behind a sky that will never be the same, faintly scarred, forever imprinted with the power that once ruled it. The gods are gone, but their presence remains. The weight of their power lingers, buried beneath layers of time, of salt water, of shifting tides. You walk along the edge of the shore, the waves brushing against your feet like the touch of an ancient hand. The path ahead is no longer clear. There are no more temples to seek, no more altars to uncover. The gods, once so close, now feel impossibly distant, their names barely whispers in the wind. The rituals have faded, the prayers gone unanswered. The world you knew has collapsed, and in its place, something new is being born, a world that must learn to live without the guidance of gods, without the balance they once provided. But you know deep within you that this is not the end. The sea may be still for now, but its depths are far from quiet. The echoes of Yam's presence, of Baal's rage, of the ancient forces that once ruled the world, they have not faded, they never will. The gods have left their mark on this earth, not just in stone or ritual, but in the very nature of the world itself. Their absence has created a void, a space where something new can rise, something shaped by the forces they once embodied. And as you look out at the horizon, you realize that the world will continue to change, to shift, to evolve. There are other gods, other forces, waiting to be discovered, waiting for someone to listen. Perhaps they are hidden beneath the earth, beneath the stars, or deep within the oceans. Perhaps they are not gods at all, but echoes of what once was, fragments of power, of memory, of myth. The world is full of whispers, of things forgotten, of secrets waiting to be uncovered. The last whispers of the gods are not gone, they are simply waiting, resting beneath the surface. In the depths where only those who are truly willing to listen can hear them. They are the quiet murmurs of a world that has not yet been fully understood, forces that are still alive, still powerful, still eternal. If your candle hasn't gone out, then you're probably ready for the next god.